Hi, it's Laura from My Home Matters, and I am back for another Thursday video. This week I'm going to show you how I made this little sign-mounted embroidery hoop bunny. So the first thing I did was I took an embroidery hoop, which I believe was an 8-inch hoop, and I just happened to have an extra background that was pre-stained from a project that I had thought I was going to do a while back. But it's just a little planked board that I happen to have. So any background that fits the size hoop that you want would do. And I just already had some stain on it, so I just left it be. And I thought out, I had some fabric. I have all kinds of craft supplies around here. So I had some pink Easter fabrics in a whole bunch of different colors, and played around with what I wanted on the body and what I thought I wanted on the ears. And when I was through deciding, I took some of the rope from last week's rope bunny project that I had left over. And this is from the Dollar Tree. It is the thinner rope. I believe it's about 1/4 of an inch. It's in the floral section. It is nautical rope, I believe is what it's called. And it's the 9.5 foot long strands. And I decided to cut approximately how much I would need for the ears first, so that I could kind of lay it out and make sure that I wasn't over or underestimating. But I needed to have that in mind so that I could do the background on the ears around the same time as I did the body. So I clipped them off 2 pieces about the same length, and I put them aside. And then I decided, I thought I was going to do the background first. I thought I was going to do the back of the ears first. So I laid them out on there thinking that was going to be my first step. But I realized then, being that I was only going through this and I had never done a test run prior, that I needed to do the background of the body first. Because if I glued the ears on first, it would be really difficult to work with getting that fabric into the hoop. So the hoop had to be done first. So I just laid it in there as tight as I could. I could have ironed both of these fabrics, and I probably should have, because they were tucked in a bin labeled pinks, and they've been in there for quite a while. So they really could have used ironed, but this was kind of a very last minute project idea. So put that in the embroidery hoop, get it nice and tight, screw the thing at the top, and then clip it all the way around as close as you can to the wood. And then you won't need the excess for that. But what you're going to see next when I do the ears is that I've already done an ear. So when you see that first ear already done, and I didn't show you that one, it's because I made several mistakes on the first ear. So the second ear, I was able to show you without all of those mistakes. One of which was I glued the fabric on backwards. So the wrong side was up. So we're not going to do that on the second one. This is kind of along the same lines as what I did last week in the rope bunnies project. I took the rope first, and because the ends could fray pretty easily, I wanted them to kind of stick together. I got my little finger protectors on and put a little bit of glue inside the edges after I cut them off nice and straight. Then I decided I probably should go and put some glue in there and twist them a little bit so that they stay nice and I don't know what's the word I'm saying, but they stay stuck together. So because you are working right with that glue, you want to protect your fingers. So once I glued those ends and kind of twisted them and made sure that they were nice and stuck together and they weren't going to fray apart, I clipped them down a little bit more, if I remember right. We'll see here in a second. But I wanted to have like a nice cut end, a nice straight cut end to be able to press it onto the wood of the embroidery hoop. So that was my next step, was to put a little dollop of glue on the end of the rope and press it in place against the embroidery hoop. And I had to hold it there until it stayed well enough that I could kind of let go and move to the other end. So if you have to add a little bit of extra, you can, but you need just enough to kind of hold it in place. Because eventually we're going to glue the body to the back, so there'll be a little bit more stability. But for now, you just need them. You need them to stay in place on their own. So then I did the other end and glued it on as well, and hold it there for a couple seconds until it sets. And then what we're going to be doing is, once that's ready, we're going to be flipping this over and putting a line of glue along the back side of the rope for the ear. And then when that glue is still nice and hot, we want to have the fabric ready, and we want to have the fabric upside right this time. And again, I really should have ironed this fabric, but I was really working against the clock to try to get some photos of the finished product before it was too dark outside. So you're going to put a line of glue all along the back of that ear, and including the embroidery hoop little section down there. Just a nice bead of hot glue all the way around, and then quickly turn it over and press it down on the fabric that is facing up, because you want the pretty side to be showing. And press it down on there so that it's nice and stuck. Give it a couple seconds. And then we're going to, when we're sure that it's on there, we're going to take the scissors and clip away the fabric. But it's easier to do that without the little finger protectors. So you just kind of get in there as close as you can to the rope so that you don't see the fabric edge showing from behind. And then we're just going to clip that off. Now I'm going to work on the little pom-pom for the tail, and I'm just taking some kind of light to medium size yarn. It's not the thinnest yarn. It's not super thick. I could have gone a little thicker, but I wrapped it around just the width of my hand about 35 times, give or take a few or a couple. And I took it off of my hand then and kept that clump kind of together, and grabbed another little piece of yarn and put the clump on top of it, and then I wrapped the yarn around the middle, pulled it tight, and tied a double knot as close to the middle as possible. What we're creating is going to be a little poof, and I've done these in other videos. It's been a while though. So tie that double knot, and then you're going to take your scissors and go in through all the loops and clip the loops on both sides of that piece that you just tied. And then the pieces should be relatively close in length, depending on how close to the middle that you got that piece you just tied. But the next step would be to kind of go over the trash can, which is what I did, but then you can't see what I'm doing. So I did it over here on the side so you could see. You're just going to try to trim them off a little bit to make the pom-pom about as even as possible on all the way around. Then you can just add a little dollop of glue down in the bottom center on the body of the background fabric and press it on. Just like that. So that leaves the last thing to do is the ribbon at the top that will cover the little clasp for the embroidery hoop. So now for the bow, there's a whole bunch of different things you can do. If you like to make bows, you can make a real pretty fancy bow. You could just kind of make a simpler bow. What I'm doing here is just cutting a few different strips in different ribbon or fabric colors and sizes, and then layering them over top of each other. So I'm cutting them just ever so slightly shorter than each other, like whichever one is going to be behind the one prior to it would be a little bit longer. So each one is a little bit shorter than the one behind it. And I even took some of this fabric, I cut a little slit, and then I ripped so that it was frayed. Took me a little bit to get started, but then I ripped that strip and cut it down and use that as the piece in the back. So that's the same fabric as the ear background. So then I just started layering them, and I cut little V's on each end and put them on top of each other. And then in the end, I will tie them together with a piece of string and go from there. So at this point, you can see that I'm about ready to tie them together, and I kind of just take them all and pinch them in the center to get ready. And then I grab a piece of real thin twine or string. Mine was like a natural color, but whatever works. And I tied that around the center in a double knot. And then eventually I will end up clipping that down so you don't see those end pieces there. So you don't even know that that's there. And then if the pieces are wired, if your ribbons are wired, you can kind of bend them and arch them and tuck and pull in different directions so that different pieces are showing. And then fool with it as much as you want. And then to attach it to the actual piece, I took another piece of string and I wrapped it through the clasp on the embroidery hoop and tied it in a double knot again so that it was secure to the background. And then once I fold with the ribbon a little bit more, I decided to add this little frayed burlap flower that I had extras of as well from one of our subscription boxes, and glued that onto the center as just a little finishing touch. So this project really could be done with any kinds of fabrics. You could go as festive or as neutral. You could even use burlaps to, do a couple of different colors of burlap. That would be super cute, and it would be rustic. You could even use a cotton flower, cotton stem flower. Sometimes you can find them, decoratively at craft stores. You could use that as instead of the pom-pom for the tail. You could use burlap behind the ears, just like I did last week for the video for the rope bunnies. And again, you could do all kind of different ribbons for the top. And then again, your background could be different. So there's so many different ways that this project could come out. You could make it super rustic, or you could make it glitzy and glamorous and whatever you want, or as festive as you want. And that's it. So I'm going to go prop it up on the shelf and take a picture. So I hope you enjoyed this week's episode from My Home Matters, and I hope that you will subscribe to our channel and go back and watch some of our previous videos. You can follow on social media over at My Home Matters LLC on Facebook, or on Instagram and Pinterest. We are my_home_matters, and we try to post the YouTube video tutorials every Thursday, and I go live on Facebook for Feature Fridays every Friday at noon.